Pinocchio. What comes to your mind when you hear this name? A liar whose nose grew every time he lied, a puppet who was granted a chance to live a life, or a wooden boy who wished to be a human by trying to live a righteous life. To me, this word brings back a trauma of the time when Halloween was just around the corner, and everyone was trying their best to prepare for the occasion, including me. It was the start of October month 2 years ago, when my husband left home for his new mistress. My children tried to comfort me by assuring me that they will never leave me no matter what happens. It wasn't the happiest day of the month, nor was it the saddest, since the liar and the cheater had already left our family. "What are you sewing, Mama?" My 5-year-old Pan woke up from his nap and asked me while rubbing his eyes. "I'm making Halloween costumes for you and your siblings, dear," I said with a smile on my face, and then went to pick him up and put him in my lap. "My friends in the kindergarten are also going to wear costumes, Mama," he said with an innocent face and voice. After playing with him for a few more minutes, I went back to work. It took me an entire week to prepare the costumes for my 3 kids, but I had no idea what I was going to do with mine. So I went online to search for a few ideas, but I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. So I went to an anonymous page and asked for help. None of them had any better ideas except for one guy who suggested that I do a Pinocchio cosplay, which was a pretty original idea, so I thought of giving it a try. Finding materials needed for the costume was pretty hard, but that guy helped me by telling me the possible stores nearby where I'd be able to find them. I went around all the stores and found the items needed for the costume and started to make it for myself. Once I was done with the costume, there was only the wood illusion part remaining, so I decided to go to the thrift market that was around the corner. As I was roaming around the market, I couldn't find the exact shade I was looking for, and that was when I got to an alley at the end of the market that didn't seem very busy at all. There were Halloween decorations all around the area. Looking at them, my gaze went to the Pinocchio statue at the end. I went to take a closer look, and when I did, it seemed pretty realistic. I looked inside the store, and they had all kinds of things needed for a Pinocchio costume. This entire store almost seemed dedicated solely to Pinocchio. So I went in and started searching for the things I needed, and ended up buying more than what I intended to originally buy. I even bought a small button from them to Pinocchio's shoes in my size. Well, before checking out, I thought of going to the restroom first. I looked around to ask someone where it might be, and there seemed to be no one around. So I went ahead to find it myself. It took a while, but I managed to find the restroom in the back near the storage room, and I got in. After finishing up, when I tried to get out, it seemed like the door had gotten stuck, and no matter how hard I tried, it just didn't budge. So I started screaming, but even after an hour when no one came, I made my peace and started waiting silently for someone to approach the area. Another hour passed and no one came, so I got up to try opening the door again, and this time it opened just like that. I slowly opened the door, got out, and walked past the storage room when I heard noises coming from the room. I got closer and noticed the door was slightly open inside, so I tried to sneak a peek. There was a man who looked like he was making Pinocchio statues. I tried to look carefully at what looked like bodies of real boys frozen, which completely freaked me out. The man was trying to make the real Pinocchio from human boys. I got so terrified that I immediately ran outside the door without even buying any stuff that I'd picked out. As I reached home, I took everything that was related to Pinocchio and I burned them. I didn't know what else to do, so I posted the experience of the incident on that anonymous page, and that same guy was the one to reply first. But the way he said that I should not pry on others' matters seemed like he was pretty angry for me posting it. And then he corrected his comment by saying maybe I was mistaken, maybe they were statues. The way he was behaving seemed like I had discovered his secret or something. As I thought of all this, another thought occurred to my mind. What if it was this man? The uneasiness in my mind grew so much that I think I felt someone stalking me after that. So I went to the police and reported the entire incident. They said that there might be a possibility that someone was preparing for a Halloween scare like every year, and it might just be my imagination, but still, they assured me they'd look into it. I deleted my post after that, and I never went to that page either. That year, I didn't wear any kind of Halloween costume, and every Pinocchio cosplay gave me a jump scare. I couldn't help but feel that one of those real Pinocchio dolls might end up in the neighborhood along with the guy. That memory still brings back all the trauma buried inside me to this day. I just hope that all of that was just my imagination and not what I thought it was. Halloween month would be starting within a week, and I have already forbidden Pinocchio in my house. Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so. You guys may have heard about the story of Pinocchio, right? A puppet who was carved by a wood carver who came to life, and his nose grows longer every time he lies. But what about the Pinocchio roaming among us, whose nose doesn't grow when they lie? Some lies affect our lives so much that they can change the entire course. They might be someone in our family, relatives, between our friends, people who know us, or someone we trust in our lives. They know what they are doing, but they keep lying and lying until the subject of their lies destroys them. There are no growing noses, so we can't recognize them between crowds. The story I'm about to tell you is about how such a Pinocchio changed my life completely and made me lose trust in everyone around me. It was around the time when I moved back to Pennsylvania after my father's death. I used to live here till middle school, so the neighbor wasn't such a strange place to me. Yes, there had been a new addition to buildings and alleys, but besides the new construction, everything remained unchanged. That is if we don't add Miss Hilda, who must be in her 90s now. She still hasn't kicked the bucket though. My mom enrolled me in this new school that was around the neighborhood. I was always to go there once in my life when I was a kid, but now when I can go, I don't find it any special. Okay, so it was the first day of school when the teacher announced that I had transferred from New York University, and it became the topic of current gossip among students. I was approached by many students during break and lunchtime, but I preferred talking to the minimal, so after a few students tried to talk to me, I pretended as if I was sleeping on my bench. On the third day of school, the students' approach became less than before, and I was able to have my lunch in peace. But that was when I got, "Hey, you're a new student, right? I heard you transferred from New York University. These students must be giving you a hard time. By the way, I'm Emily. When I first transferred from St. Paul's Girls' School, I had to suffer the same kind of situation." A chatterbox appeared. "I'm Kate," I replied. I wanted to make my leave with my replies, but she was persistent. "Wow, they were right. You don't talk much," she said while taking a seat next to me. For the next 30 minutes, she continued to ramble beside me until the bell rang. I immediately got up and went to class. The next few hours were quiet as I continued to fully focus on my classes. The moment school was over, I packed my things and headed out of the classroom. As I was walking toward the school gate, I heard the familiar voice of Emily, but I chose to ignore it and strode forward. "Hey, Kate." I stopped as she held my bag while catching her breath. It looked like she ran after me. She walked to the gate with me and diverted my attention from the front when I bumped into someone. I looked forward while apologizing, only to see a guy smiling at me. "What are you still doing here, Caleb?" Emily asked while raising an eyebrow. But he ignored her question and continued to stare at me, which, trust me, felt pretty uncomfortable. "Who is she?" he asked without removing his gaze from me. "That's Kate. She's the new transfer student I told you about." She replied, but I could feel the discomfort in her voice, and trust me, I wanted to avoid both of them. So I told Emily that I was late and excused myself from the situation. After that day, the two of them continued bothering me and following me wherever I went, whether it was cafeteria, lunch, or even the library. I sometimes wondered if they ever attended their classes or not, looking at how they were always in the hallway when I got there. They even started to visit me in my class during break time, and eventually they started to grow on me, making me look forward to seeing them. I never knew when I first started to attend this school that I'd make such good friends this easily. Well, practically they forced themselves on me, but still, I became quite fond of them as time went by. One day, they asked if they could come over to my house on the weekend. At first, I hesitated to invite them over, but eventually I agreed. I never knew I would be, but surprisingly, I was looking forward to having them over. Guess this is what friendship does to you. I prepared snacks, drinks, games, etc. for them to enjoy. After that, I started waiting for them to arrive, and they got here about 5 in the evening. I first offered them some snacks and drinks, trying to be a good host as Google suggested, and then asked if they wanted to play some games, to which they agreed. "You're trying too hard," Caleb whispered in my ear as I sat on the couch near him. "What?" I stuttered because of the embarrassment of looking at how close he was. "About this whole good host thing. We didn't expect you to be perfect, so be cool, okay?" I nodded my head as he said that. That was when Emily asked me where the bathroom was, and I immediately got up to show her the guest bathroom near the stairs. After enjoying the evening together for a few hours, they said goodbye and left. Mom got back from work around 8 p.m., and she looked pretty tired, so I fixed her dinner. I also sat there with her to eat when the doorbell rang. "You eat, I'll get it." Mom was about to get up, so I told her and went to see who it was at this time. As I opened the door, I saw 2 officers in front of our house. "What is it, officers?" I asked. "Can we check your house for a minute? We heard someone around this neighborhood was doing drug dealings," one of them asked. I was surprised about that, but I let them in. They looked around the kitchen, around the living room for a brief moment, and then went straight to the guest bathroom. After looking for a few minutes, they came out and asked my mom to step out of the house for a minute, saying they needed to talk about something. But the moment she stepped outside, they arrested her, saying they found drugs in the guest bathroom. I pleaded with them not to take her, and it must be some misunderstanding because my mother and I never used that bathroom. But they didn't listen to me, and they took her away. I broke down, because I didn't have anyone besides her in the whole world. And I was crying, thinking about how this could have happened. But then it hit me. She was never home due to her work in the hospital as a nurse, and whenever she got back, she was so tired that I had to forcefully tuck her into bed as she used to fall asleep anywhere. The 2 of us had bathrooms in our rooms, so I never saw her using the one in the guest room, and there was only one person who did use that bathroom: Emily. The next day as I went to school, the news of my mom's arrest had already spread throughout the school. And I wasn't surprised by it either, looking at which liar might have done it. As Emily approached me cheerfully, I gave her a tight slap on the cheek, grabbing everyone's attention towards us. "Don't you dare act friendly with me. I know it was you who planted drugs in the bathroom," I said while gritting my teeth. "What are you talking about? Why would I?" she replied with a confused expression on her face, which I knew very well was fake. "Oh, let's see, because you were jealous of Caleb's flirting with me. Don't you dare approach me from now on, or I might break a leg or 2 of yours," I said and stomped away while I heard her say, "I swear it wasn't me." I stopped talking to both of them after that, and didn't make any more friends either. My mom's in jail for a few months, so I have to work part-time if I want her to get out on parole. But yeah, this entire experience taught me one thing: better watch out for the liars among us. There was once this story about Pinocchio that a man wrote. It was one of the grittiest and most sadistic things that I have ever read. The story was definitely not the child-friendly Disney version of the Pinocchio, but it was rather a sadistic version of it. And then some often argue even that the sadistic story that I have heard is the real story and not the Disney one. Even though the Disney story is more hopeful and cheerful, there's definitely something about the sadistic story that is much more real, and the chances of it being closer to reality trumps over the chances of the Disney one being real. The story starts with a man who brought in a doll from a county fair and kept it in the basement of his house. It was said the man that bought the doll wasn't really stable when it came to everyday social situations. He was bit slowly when it came to things, and he was labeled a creep in the town. Kids of the town didn't really help by bullying him constantly, and because of that, the condition that he was in was even worse than it was before, and it made him more secluded from everyone else. It all spiraled to when the man was pushing into becoming a loner, and that is when he started this friendship with the dolls and started talking to them, and his parents did see that, and even tried to get him out talking and meeting people in real life, but he tried that before, and people were not ready to accept him out in the society, and then he became a complete shut-in. It was then that his conversations started out with the dolls that he was collecting. He would start talking to them in front of the people, but every other time he did talk to them. He must have been the college age when he started keeping those dolls, and it soon became something he did very often and became the collector of the creepy dolls. It wasn't until the late summer when things changed for him. It was the mid-1800s, and the time was much harder than it was today. So some people, while he was walking out with his dolls in his hands, he was crossing the river stream passing by, when some of the guys in his town saw him, and they decided to gang up on him and bully him. He wasn't sure what he did wrong, and there was nothing that he could even do to stop that feeling. So he just crawled himself into a hamster ball and got beaten by those guys from the town. He stayed there motionless as long as he could. He just wanted the guys to go away. And when they realized that he isn't really reacting to anything, they just left away, kicking his dolls. And as they did, a man in a suit picked up the doll and looked at it and asked him as he was lying down, "Now, young man, is this your friend?" And as the man looked up as he heard the word friend, he realized that the man was not a danger. And then he looked and just slightly nodded. The man in the suit said, "Well, young man, I'm going to pay you $1,000 for this doll and teach you how to make them if you wish so." The man had no idea about anything, and he just said yes and followed him. The man showed him around the factory, and that is where he learned how to make really amazing dolls, and he was especially interested in the ceramic dolls, and most importantly, was able to find a career out of this, and went on to manufacture dolls and became an integral part of the manufacturing company. And then one day, when he had enough money, he left the company, thanked the man for his help, and decided to open up a small workshop of his own in his basement, or even buy a warehouse. He later went on to establish a workshop of ceramic doll manufacturing in his basement, and then bought a warehouse, and that is how he started his own company of dolls. It had been 10 years since he had started this, and he even had the support of the man who gave him the job when he was found down beaten by the bullies. But even after becoming so successful and rich, it wasn't enough for the people to shut up, and they went on to bully him even then. And even after the success, the people of the town looked down at him, as he was the same old man who talked to the dolls in his basement. And the man this time seemed to take it quite well. He said nothing and did nothing about it, and just focused on his work. One day, while he was coming back from his workshop, one of the bullies who bullied him years ago was strolling around with his kid, and he decided to bully him again to impress his child. He took the doll from his hands, and the bully father told his son, "Be anything you like, but don't be this creep, alright son?" And he snatched the doll from the hand of the man, and then stomped on it, breaking it, and then went on to beat the man. This time, the man was angry, and it was almost as if that he was done by all that bullying he had been going through, and he decided to do something so vigorous that it would make his bullies regret that they ever laid a hand on him. He was a man of money now and success, so getting things wasn't really something very difficult. So he did what he knew the best. He threw some money around and acquired the family information on all his bullies. And then, when he was done with it, he hired 3 muscles, really strong big guy that could not be challenged by any of his bullies, and then ordered them to kidnap the kids of every single bully that rattled him when he was a kid. They brought the kids to the warehouse, and then the man went on to carefully turn every kid into a ceramic doll, and he did carefully where the kids won't suffocate, but couldn't even do anything. He then wrote a letter to every single one of his bullies that he has made them dolls and they surely must want. They came and they tried threatening the man, but he was now with the big muscles. Then he said to them, "You have been bullying me for my dolls, and now I am going to bully you for your dolls. Your kids have been carefully turned into dolls. If you want your dolls to be alive again, bring the deed to everything you own and name it to me." At first they didn't believe him, but then he brought out one of the dolls and then hammered it, and the king came out of it and started running to his father. And the man said, "Well, William wasn't too much of a bully, and to be honest, he is too poor. I cannot really get anything from him, so I am letting his kid go just to set an example. So hurry up, guys, bring in your deeds." They all were very helpless in that moment and went and brought in the deeds for their house, farm, cattle, or anything they owned. And the man was quite joyous to see that, and he took all the deeds and set them on fire, and then brought out the dolls and ordered the muscles to break them all carefully and said, "There you go, make your dolls real." It all happened when I was babysitting for this family in my town. Their daughters were 6 and 10. I was 16 back then. I ordered the pizza, and we all ate that, and then went on to play video games for the next hour or so, until Mabel, the young daughter, wanted to sleep. Mabel slept, and Violet, who was the older one, discussed the idea of watching Nightmare on Elm Street. Now I don't know if her parents would have allowed that. I even wondered why they even hired a babysitter, since Violet was pretty responsible herself. But the matter of fact, I agreed to watch the Nightmare at Elm Street. Did not want to look like an uptight dude. So we started watching it, and I brought in popcorn. She was pretty terrified, and we were sharing the blanket on our feet, quietly enjoying the movie. At around midway in the movie, we started hearing rustling noises on the outside. At first I thought maybe their parents were home, so I told her to switch to The Princess Bride so I don't get scolded for showing a horror flick. As I got, there was nothing. I got back inside and she was on the phone. It was her parents. They said they'd be late. The roads have been blocked and there is a rumor that the power will go shortly. They ordered me to go back and instructed the daughter to shut the doors and sleep. She told me that I just couldn't shake the feeling of leaving both of them alone, so I stayed with them just to make sure. We stood there talking about things. She was smarter than her age, and she asked me all the questions about school and stuff, and we ended up doing her homework. And the power just went off cold, but we were ready. I told her to go to her sister, and she did. I stood down and locked all the doors and windows. It felt like a storm would build up. I went up and informed her about everything. 3 of us gathered around the TV, so it could be easier in case we had to make a run for things or cover. We got together to talk about things while Mabel slept. It was like one of those slumber parties that we had as a kid, and we chatted a lot, until the room started shaking. It felt like it was an earthquake. I quickly made Rabel and Violet go take a cover, and did it myself. I rolled on the flashlight to them, and told them to make way for the door outside, Before all the shaking, they made their way to the door, and we stepped outside. It was just the three of us, and a couple more people, since everybody was already out of town due to vacations. And as we stepped outside, we turned on the flashlights. Violet was holding me tightly, and I was carrying Mabel as she closed her eyes. Violet closed her eyes all the time too. And in a few minutes, a stream of lights made the night sky bright. And as it happened, I told Violet to open her eyes. It was beautiful. It seemed like a big, flat, square disc making its way to the sky. It was flying way closer than most flying vehicles, as an airplane or gliders or helicopters did. I and Violet and Mabel kept looking at it, mesmerized. The sky was all red, and soon, as we were in awe, we were terrified. As it rained fire from the rear of that unidentified object, almost as if it was crashing, I held the girls with all my grip strength, and we ran towards the house and took cover. We huddled together beneath the table, wrapping ourselves with Mabel's blanket. After an hour later, we went outside. The smoke from that flying object withered the whole city invisible, and the redness of its light was still there. Our town looked exactly like that upside down from Stranger Things. This was the memory that Stranger Things brought for me. Mabel and Violet's parents were very grateful, and I did not leave as they arrived at around 8 in the morning. The UFO was a government spacecraft mission that failed and crashed at an abandoned site not far from our town. I shortly moved to New York that next summer. Moving forward to 10 years, I was 26 and out on a date. My date came in and introduced herself. We lived in a small town. It was Violet. She was 20 and was studying at NYU. We started dating, and the first thing we discussed was the night that it all happened. We have been married for 4 years now, and it all came back to us when we binge-watched the Stranger Things, almost as if it had a part of our life somewhere in it.